Morning, Rich.
Morning.
Morning, Kirby.
Kirby, Bob Mindbrace, New Jersey.
Caitlin Starks is here. Kirby is not going to be on the call today, but I'll be.
Okay. I just wanted to check in, Caitlin.
Yeah. Thanks. We'll do a roll call in just a couple minutes, or actually it's 9 a.m. So, Bob, whenever you would like to start, let me know.
Okay.
Yeah, let's stay right on time. I've got 9 a.m. sharp. So, Caitlin, why don't you just run down the states and just find out who is on the call from each state, and this would be commissioners only.
All right. So let's start with New Hampshire. Anyone from New Hampshire on the call? I don't think so. Massachusetts? Nicola? All right. Nicola, Missouri, Rick Haynes. Sorry, I could not hear the last person that spoke. All right, I'm going to call out the commissioners' names. That might work easier. So, Nicola, you're proxying for David? Correct. Raymond Kane?
Yes.
Okay. Representative Sarah Peak?
And folks, if you are on the phone, if you could please mute your line by using your phone to mute them. And if you cannot mute your phone through your own telephone, if you can hit *6 if you're not talking, because the background noise comes through really easily here, and then it makes it really difficult for us to hear the folks that are talking. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right. So we'll keep going down. Dave Borden? Nope. Babalu is here. Eric Reed is here.
Correct.
All right. Mark Alexander?
Here. Along with Greg Bochik and Matt will be here in a little bit.
All right. Craig Miner? Lance Stewart? No. James Gilmore? Jim. John, are you here?
Yeah, John Maniscalco and
Maureen Davidson
are here for New York.
Okay. Emerson Hasbrook?
Yes, here.
John McMurray? Nope. Heather Corbett? Here. All right. Adam Nowalski?
Present.
Tom Cody? Is Tom Cody online? All right, we'll come back. Roy Miller?
Here.
And we have Rich on the line for David Svika.
Rick, come on for John Clark.
Okay. William Carson or Craig? David Blazer?
Caitlin, this is Mike Luisi. I'm on for Dave.
All right, thanks, Mike. Ed O'Brien? Nope. Rachel Dean? Nope. Marty Gary? Nope. Rob O'Reilly?
Present with a disclosure.
Uh-huh.
A new commissioner started yesterday. We're checking to see if we can get my ongoing proxy sent up this morning. So there is a little bit of a disclosure there.
Okay. Thanks, Rob.
We'll give you this grace period.
Hail Mary, thank you.
Kathy Davenport? Kyle Schick? Okay, Steve Murphy or Chris, that's outside.
Hey, Caitlin, this is Chris. I'm proxying for Steve.
All right, thanks, Chris. Doug Brady.
This is Tom.
Oh, Tom, we got you.
Okay, because I couldn't get off mute.
Okay, thank you. David Bush. All right, so I don't have David Bush or Doug Brady. And then is there anyone else on the line, commissioners, that I did not get?
David Borden.
All right, there you are, David. Got you.
Hi, this is Pete Burns from NOAA Fisheries.
Okay, is anyone from Fish and Wildlife on the phone? Nope. All right, I think we have everyone. And just as an FYI, this call is being recorded so that we can have a record of the meeting today. And Bob, I guess you can take it from here.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And I count 10 voting members. We don't have New Hampshire, so we have Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. We don't have PRFC. Then we go on with Virginia, North Carolina, and NOAA Fisheries. We don't have U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So I count 10 voting members. Does that match up with your list, Caitlin?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for that. And I know obviously we have you on as our FMP coordinator. I know Tony Kearns is on as well. Are there any other staff on the call?
Nope.
Okay. And I know. Oh, Tina's on. Great. Welcome, Tina. And I know we have Greg Wojcik as well, our TC chair. So with that, I will say good morning to everyone, and I will call this meeting of the ASMFC's Summer Flounder, Scup, and Black Sea Bass Management Board to order. My name is Bob Ballou. I have the honor of serving as board chair. So as everyone knows, the board typically meets in person, but on rare occasion we do meet via conference call. This is one of those occasions. Not being in the same room and not being able to see each other creates obvious challenges, particularly with regard to recognizing people who may wish to speak. So I will do my best to moderate the discussion, in a fair and inclusive way. As we move through the agenda, please ask to be recognized whenever you wish to speak and wait for me to give you the green light before you begin. That should help to avoid the awkwardness of more than one person talking at the same time. So let's see if we can move through this call as efficiently and effectively as possible. As Tony has already mentioned, and I can't emphasize this enough, please mute your phones unless and until you wish to speak. The background noise really is distracting. So right now it's perfect. The line sounds very quiet at the moment, so thanks for doing that, and let's try and keep that going through the call. Moving right into our agenda. Our first order of business is the agenda itself. I have one suggested tweak, which has been offered by Caitlin. Caitlin suggested that her presentation will flow better if she reviews the regional proposals in the reverse order from that shown on the draft agenda. That is, she would like to first review the Southern Region proposal, followed by the New Jersey Region proposal, followed by the Northern Region proposal. Is there any objection to proceeding in that fashion? Hearing none, we will modify the agenda accordingly. Are there any other suggested modifications to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda as modified stands approved by consent. And we're on to our next item, which is public comment. This is an opportunity for any member of the public who wishes to address the board on any issue that is not on the agenda to do so. Is there anyone from the public who would like to be recognized for this purpose?
Bob, this is Nicola Meserve. I'm sorry I didn't get in there quickly enough when you asked about the agenda, but I'm wondering where Connecticut's Connecticut's proposal that differs slightly from the Northern Region proposal will fit into the agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Nicola, for raising that. I think the logical time to take that up would be as the board takes up final action on the regional proposals, and when we get to the northern region, it seems to me that would be the appropriate time to raise that issue. Does that work for you?
Certainly, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so just to ask one more time, is there anyone from the public who would like to be recognized for the public comment portion of this agenda, recognizing that this is not the time to comment on recreational black sea bass, but on any other issue? Hearing none, we will move on to our next item, which is the main item, which is to consider the 2018 recreational black sea bass regional proposals for final action. I'll just take a quick moment to brief the board on what this item is slated to address and how we plan to address it. Addendum 30, approved by the board at our meeting last month in Virginia, establishes the framework for recreational black sea bass management in 2018. That framework allocates the recreational harvest limit, or RHL, for the coast among 3 regions and calls upon the states within each region to develop regional proposals for achieving their regional allocation. Over the past few weeks, the 3 regions have developed their proposals and submitted them to the board's technical committee, or TC. Our charge today as a board is to review the proposals and the TC report and take final action on the proposals. As we get into the details of each region's approach, it will become evident that in some cases the board will be considering approval of proposed measures, in other cases proposed methodologies, from which individual state conservation equivalency proposals may follow. So that's the substance of what the board will be addressing this morning. In terms of process, Caitlin will begin with a presentation that covers all 3 regional proposals, as well as the TC's review of those proposals. Greg Wojcik, who serves as the TC chair, will then be given the opportunity to add anything more that he'd like to add. I will then provide an opportunity for questions for either Caitlin or Greg from any board member. I will then provide an opportunity for any member of the public to offer comment on the regional proposals. I will then turn back to the board for final action on the proposals, and we will need to take roll call votes for each motion. So if you haven't already coordinated among your state delegation as to who will be voicing your state's votes, please do so now offline. Are there any questions on how we plan to proceed? Hearing none, Caitlin, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just as a reminder for anyone who is joining the call as we speak, please put your phone on mute. As we mentioned before, the feedback comes through really easily for us, so just to make sure everyone can hear clearly, please keep yourself on mute as long as you're not speaking. Thank you. All right, so as Bob mentioned, I'll be going over the regional proposals for the 2018 recreational black sea bass fishery under Addendum 30. And to give you an outline of my presentation, I'll start off with some background information on the addendum, then move into the regional proposals and the technical committee report. Follow that with an overview of the conservation equivalency proposals from Connecticut and New York. And then I'll go over the next steps for these proposals and the final 2018 measures, and finally take any questions from the board. Throughout the February 2018 meeting, the Summer Flounder, Scup, and Black Sea Bass Management Board approved Addendum 30 for recreational black sea bass management with provisions for regional allocation of the recreational harvest limit, or RHL. The addendum establishes a 3-region alignment for the management of the fishery and requires each region to set a regulatory standard set of measures from which the states within a region can deviate using conservation equivalency. So state measures can differ from the regulatory standard by no more than 1 inch in size limit and 3 fish in possession limit, with no restriction on the variation in season length. In the deliberations on Addendum 30, the board chose to use an allocation scheme based on a combination of exploitable biomass and historical harvest, and a hybrid of the two timeframe options presented in the document. And the resulting regional allocations of the RHL are shown here in this table. So the northern region is allocated 61.35%, New Jersey is allocated 30.24%, and the southern region is allocated 8.41% of the total coastwide RHL. So with that background information, I'll now go over each of the regional proposals and summarize the technical committee's recommendations for each proposal. And then, as Bob mentioned, after I give my presentation, Greg Wojcik, who is our TC chair, can answer any other questions for the TC. So I'll start off with the Southern Region's proposal. So the Southern Region, which includes Delaware through North Carolina, north of Cape Hatteras, proposes matching the federal regulations for black sea bass recreational harvest with measures including a 15-fish bag limit, 12.5-inch minimum size limit, and an open season from May 15th until December 31st. And this removes the one-month fall closure that was in place for 2017. And the projected harvest for 2018 under these measures for the Southern Region is 282,802 pounds, which is equal to an 11.9 increase from the Southern Region's 2017 harvest, but it's still 25,162 pounds below the regional allocation of the recreational harvest limit. And the Southern Region's allocation is 307,964 pounds. Additionally, the states of Virginia and North Carolina have indicated in the proposal that their projected additional harvest from the February fishery is only 5,558 pounds. So the states have requested to use the Southern Region's foregone harvest of 25,000 pounds to account for the February fishery instead of implementing more restrictive measures during the rest of the season. And the technical committee reviewed this proposal from the Southern Region and had no concerns with the technical merits of the proposal, and thus recommends board approval of the Southern Region's proposal. So I'll now do New Jersey's proposal. New Jersey proposed several sets of example measures that satisfy the requirements of Addendum 30, and I'll show these on the next slide. But each option achieves but does not exceed the regional allocation of the RHL for New Jersey, which is roughly 1.1 million pounds. And in developing these options, New Jersey applied a smoothed harvest estimate for Wave 3, which was determined to be an outlier. So using this smoothed Wave 3 value, the total harvest estimate for New Jersey in 2017 was approximately 500,000 fish. And once the smoothed approach is applied, New Jersey's allocation of the 2018 RHL is equal to a 46% liberalization from the 2017 harvest estimate. And I'll just quickly do another reminder to please put your phones on mute because I am hearing some feedback. Thank you. And as I mentioned, these are New Jersey's proposed example measures. So as you can see, they include variations in possession limits, size limits, and seasons, but all of these options result in a harvest that's near but under the regional allocation of the RHL. And in the last column here, you can see specifically what the projected harvest is that's resulting from each of these sets of measures. So the New Jersey Marine Advisory Council will meet in a little later to determine their final measures, which might differ slightly from what is proposed here, but will follow the same methodology that's being considered today. The technical committee encountered a couple of technical issues with regard to the smoothing of Wave 3 and the bag limit analysis in the New Jersey proposal, and they requested that those be resolved before making a recommendation on this proposal. So following our TC call last week, New Jersey did make the requested changes, and the TC reevaluated their revised proposal via email. And that revised proposal was provided in the meeting materials for the board. And once that was revised, the TC found no issues with the technical merits of the proposal and did recommend board approval. Moving on to the northern region, the northern region's proposal aims to achieve the regional allocation of 2,245,410 pounds of black sea bass for 2018, and this is equal to 989,134 fish when using the average weight of black sea bass for the northern states. And just as a note, each region, when they were doing their calculations, used state-specific or region-specific weight to do their weight number conversions for black sea bass. So for the northern region, this allocation constitutes about a 12% reduction from the region's 2017 harvest. And the region developed their regulatory standard set of measures that would achieve the regional allocation, including 4 fish in possession limit, 15 inches in minimum size, and a season with 16 days in wave 3, 62 days in wave 2, and 41 days in wave 5. And these measures are expected to achieve 99.7% of the regional allocation for 2018. But due to some concerns among the 4 northern states about how these measures would impact each state because of the differences in their fisheries, the northern region also used an ad hoc approach to develop an alternative set of measures for each state. And when these are combined, this gets them close to their regional allocation. So these measures effectively redistribute the state's shares within the region, and the region's goal in developing them was to get closer to more equity between the states in terms of access to the resource. So in this table here, you can see what each state's measures are under this ad hoc approach. And these measures are expected to produce a regional harvest of 1,377 fish, which is equal to 101.1% of their regional allocation of the RHL. So while this is slightly over the regional allocation of the RHL, the idea was that the unused portion of the southern region's allocation would be able to cover most or all of this overage. And in the technical committee's review, they evaluated the methodology and measures for both the regional standard and alternative measures for the northern region and found no concerns with the technical merits of the proposal, and they recommended board approval, noting that the slight overage of the northern region's allocation is not a concern when considering the southern region's underage. All right, so I'll now go over the conservation equivalency proposals that have been received, although there's no action needed on these today if the regional proposals are approved, because they follow the same methodology and fit the requirements of the addendum. So Connecticut, because of differences in availability seasonally between the west and eastern portion of their state, Connecticut proposed 2 conservationally equivalent options with expanded season lengths to accommodate their anglers across the state, and those are shown in the table here. And it should be noted that the difference from the measures for Connecticut in the northern proposal that I just showed is that these measures include a mid-season closure from mid-July to early August, and the bag limit is 3 fish in the May to July season and 5 fish starting in August, whereas the bag limit is 3 fish in September in the other measures for Connecticut proposed by the northern region. New York also submitted a memo indicating they may explore some conservationally equivalent measures to the alternative state measures proposed by the northern region, and these could include changes to bag limit and season, and they would follow the same methodology that was approved by the TC. But as I mentioned, the board will not need to take action on these conservation equivalency proposals today. So to summarize the management program for the coast that's being proposed, I put together a summary table to show what the resulting harvest from each state or region's proposal is expected to be. So if there were multiple options proposed for a state or a region, I included the one producing the most harvest when I was constructing this table. So you can see here that the total projected harvest for 2018 based on these proposals is 3,665,376 pounds, which is 0.1% over the 2018 RHL of 3.661 million pounds. So the board's next steps following any questions will be to consider these regional proposals for final approval, and the board will need to consider the proposed methodology for each region, but at this point, final measures do not need to be approved for each region. After the meeting, the states will finalize their measures, and any CE proposals will be reviewed by staff to make sure they meet the requirements of the addendum and the region. So once we have these, staff will also provide the letter to GARFO with the state measures for recreational black sea bass in 2018. And that concludes my presentation, so I can take any questions.
And before I open the floor to questions for Caitlin, Greg, did you want to add anything at this point, or do you want to just make yourself available for questions?
Thank you. I think at this point, I think Caitlin covered the TC sentiments very well in her presentation, and I'll be on standby for questions.
Thanks, Greg. So I'll open the floor to questions for either Caitlin or Greg.
This is Rob O'Reilly. I raised my hand. Did you see my hand raised?
I did not, but I hear you now, Rob. So the floor is yours.
I'll put my hand down. All right. Anyway, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that February fishery, and we have an update. Just recently, at least in Virginia, we found out with our headboat coverage, I think we covered all the headboat trips except one, and the discards were counted in with the harvest, so there was a 900-pound difference. Right now, the estimate for Virginia is 4,303 pounds. There may be a few stragglers who missed the March 15th reporting deadline, but clearly it's going to be under the allotment that was figured out a couple of months ago as to what the Virginia fishery would do. And then I'll have a report on that. We had hundreds of hours of law enforcement coverage, a lot of biosampling just for everyone's information. So thank you.
Thank you. Other questions?
Hey, Bob, this is Chris Savage. If I could just comment on North Carolina's February fishery.
Go for it.
All right, thanks. As far as we know, there was very little, if any, effort in our fishery. The weather, I think, kept a lot of people from going through Oregon Inlet, which is really the only path out to the ocean north of Hatteras. The MRIP creel clerks did not intercept any anglers targeting or harvesting black sea bass in that part of the state during February. And I only know of one trip just from an internet report of somebody going out fishing. So unless that shows up on a VTR or something like that, or any other trips show up on VTRs, our harvest is expected to be somewhere close to zero. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bob,
anyone else?
How are you? Bob,
yeah, go ahead, Mike. Yeah, I got you.
Just want to clarify, I thought I heard Caitlin say in her presentation that the board doesn't have to take action on the conservation equivalency proposals at this time, but are we going to take action to consider the methodologies? Is that what we're doing today? So that if we
do the
methodologies, then the states can follow up after the fact.
That's accurate, Mike, that the board today is approving the methodologies, and there would still be an opportunity for states to submit conservation equivalency proposals, which would be reviewed by staff, and the standard of review would be consistency with the methodologies reviewed and approved today.
Gotcha. Perfect. Thanks.
This is Nicola Mazzara. I have a follow-up question about that specific to the Connecticut proposal.
Okay.
The Connecticut proposal includes a change in the minimum size, which was not part of the Northern Region's proposal. There was no methodology included in the Northern Region proposal for a size limit change. So it would be looking for some clarification as to whether a motion approving the Northern Region proposal would provide Connecticut the ability to change their size limit through conservation equivalency, because it was not part of the Northern Region proposal.
It's a good question, Nicola. My take is, and I'll see if Caitlin or Tony have additional thoughts on this, but my take is that the addendum allows for it, but the board today can weigh in on that issue if the board feels so inclined. So if there were no board-specific action today taken relative to any CE proposal, any state would have the opportunity to submit a CE proposal, and again, the standard of review would be, not varying more than 1 inch in minimum size, nor more than 3 fish in bag from the approved regulatory standard, and being consistent with the methodologies that are going to be reviewed and approved today. Caitlin or Tony, do you have anything further to add to that?
Nope, I think you covered it, Bob.
Nicola, do you have a follow, or does that cover your question?
I think I'm still needing a little bit of clarity. It seems that we would need a specific action to approve Connecticut's methodology for a size limit change separate from a action to approve the Northern Region proposal. Is that correct?
Well, you can make that motion for sure. I would call it a board prerogative today to not only address the fundamental issues of the regulatory standards and the methodologies, but as well any follow-up action that the board might, that's all the board needs to do today. That's the only issues that are before us today. However, there have been CE proposals submitted, and you're right, Connecticut is one, and if the board feels inclined to address their proposal, the board can do so through a specific motion, but it's not incumbent upon the board to review and approve CE proposals today, given the way the addendum is structured.
Okay, thank you.
Other thoughts or comments on that issue or any other issue associated with Caitlin's presentation or the TC report?
Yes, hi. You have me?
Yeah, who is this?
Kevin Slattery. I'm a charter fisherman from Massachusetts. I believe that, and I can't find where it's here.
Kevin,
yes, you got me?
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. I'm going to give you and anyone else in the public the opportunity to comment very quickly. It might even be within a minute or two, but can you just hold your thought until we get through with the board's review first?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Stand by. I'll be getting back to you momentarily. Anyone else from the board who would like to weigh in at this point?
Yeah, hi, Bob. This is Pete Burns from NOAA Fisheries. I just had a question about its proposal. So if the board did go ahead and approve the Northern Region's proposal, would Connecticut's conservation equivalency options be limited to these two options, or would they have the opportunity to expand that as long as they stay within the parameters of what's approved?
My take would be the latter, Pete. I think each state, and this is stated on the bottom of the agenda, so I'll just read the line that reads, states are afforded the flexibility to make adjustments to their proposed measures following the approved methodology. So any state within any region can submit a CE proposal after this meeting, which would be reviewed by staff, and it would, again, the standards of review, I don't want to get too repetitive here, would be the ones already mentioned. And, of course, that needs to be done in a timely fashion because there needs to be a submittal to GARFO that needs to happen soon. So there's an expectation that if any state were to submit a CE proposal, it would have to happen very quickly, and it would be reviewed by staff, and that's my sense. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah, thank you.
And again, Tony or Caitlin, please jump in if I offer any comments that are not perfectly aligned with your take on our process. Hearing none. Is there any comment? Go ahead.
Hi, this is John Maniscalco from New York. So certainly technically, you know, there's not, let's say from a calculation standpoint, you know, I don't have any issue with the Connecticut proposal. I know the technical committee did not have consensus on all being in favor of the half-inch minimum size increase. Certainly, I feel that it would lead to increased discards, and there's also some question about how useful a half-inch size increase would be given the you know, the shape of the black sea bass tail and how that could be used to achieve that half-inch necessary. And then, of course, I would have to acknowledge the fact that it would lead to, I guess, lack of stability in the region, especially when you share waters with someone who has a different size limit. So New York isn't particularly in favor of allowing a half-inch size increase as a tool for this. Thank you.
Thank you for that, John. We can certainly circle back to this issue and any other issue when we get to the point in the agenda, which will be happening soon, where we're entertaining motions. At this point, I just want to make sure that we take care of any additional questions for either Caitlin or Greg.
Yes, Kevin Slattery again. Can I? Just my point to jump in.
Hang on, almost, Kevin. I'm sorry. That's all right. Hang in there. I think I'm just about ready to turn to you, so I'm going to give it one last shot. Anyone else on the board? Okay, hearing none. I will now open the call to comments from the public. Kevin, you're going to be up first. Please focus your comments solely on the regional proposals that are before the board. And so I'll go to you first. Kevin, thank you for holding, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I believe that the issue of the 1-inch size increase in 2011 was addressed in a review of the effectiveness, and it clearly wrote down there that the 1-inch size increase did not achieve any cuts in itself. So I would think it's not part of the methodology anymore. I can't get the document up that states it, but it was stated. I'll throw that out there that it didn't work then, it won't work now. But
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to address the board at this point? Going once, going twice. Okay, hearing no other indications that anyone else in the public would like to speak, and this will be the only public comment portion of the meeting. So again, let me just make sure if there's anyone out there who's on the fence, now is your time. Is there anyone else in the public that would like to address the board? Hearing none, I will now bring this back to the board for the purpose of taking final action on the regional proposals. We'll do that via 3 motions or more, but at least 3, 1 for each region, beginning with the southern region. I think that would flow best because that's the way Caitlin presented things. So let's begin with the southern region, then we'll follow with New Jersey, and then go to the northern region. I understand that there may be some draft language that's been developed. I think a lot of this was happening at the last minute, so anything that gets put up on the board should be considered just draft and only offered for the board to draw upon for the purpose of making a motion, but certainly the language can be adjusted as anyone sees fit. So with that, Caitlin, do you have some draft language for the southern region just to sort of trigger this next part of the discussion that you could put up?
Yes. Hold on one moment. I'll get that up. And I believe that someone is already ready to make the motion. So
let's wait and we'll get it up, and then again, as soon as it's up, I'll ask if any member of the board would like to make that motion or any other motion pertaining to the southern region. And I think we're just waiting for that to come up.
Bob, in the meantime, this is Pete Burns again. I just have one more quick question. I'm sorry to slow down the process here. So once we make decisions on the methodologies here, so the states can go back and develop conservationally equivalent proposals. I know that those come back to the ASMFC for review, and so is there some technical committee review that subsequently will review any kind of conservation equivalency proposals to make sure that it falls within the RHL?
My understanding is that no, it'll be done at the staff level, but Tony or Caitlin, do you want to speak to that, to Pete's question?
Yes, we will be checking them to make sure that they, A, constrain to the RHL for the region, so with any conservation equivalency.
Or it may not be, it's the total. When we send a letter to you, Pete, it will be about the total RHL. It may not be for each individual region. We will only look at this in the letter to you for the entire coast measures as a whole.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question, Pete. Okay, so now we have some draft language, and it should be regarded as just that because it's now up to anyone who would like to make a motion that might include this language or any variation on that. Would anyone like to make a motion pertaining to the southern region?
Yes, Bob, this is Rich Wong.
Go ahead, Rich.
I'd like to make a motion. Move to approve the proposed regulatory standard measures for the southern region for 2018 recreational black sea bass, those being a 12.5-inch minimum size limit, 15-inch bag limit, and a season from May 15th to December 31st.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Rob O'Reilly. I'll second that, Rob.
Okay, I heard Rob first. So Rob O'Reilly has seconded the motion. So the motion has been made and seconded. It is the exact language that is up on the screen now, and I will read it back before the board votes on it. But at this point, I will entertain any discussion on the motion. Is there anyone who would like to discuss the motion on the board now before I call the vote on the motion? Hearing no discussion, I will read it into the record again, and then I will call the vote, and it will be a roll call vote, so please be ready as Caitlin calls each state's name. The move to approve the proposed regulatory standard measures for the southern region for 2018 recreational black sea bass, those being a 12.5-inch minimum size limit, 15-fish bag limit, and a season from May 15 to December 31. Motion by Mr. Wong, second by Mr. O'Reilly. Is the board ready for the question? If so, Caitlin, could you please call the roll?
All right. Massachusetts?
Yes.
Rhode Island?
Yes.
Connecticut?
Yes.
New York?
Yes.
New Jersey?
Yes.
Delaware?
Yes.
Maryland?
Yes.
PRC is absent. Virginia?
Yes.
North Carolina?
Yes.
NOAA Fisheries?
Yes.
All right. So that's a count of 10 yeses.
Okay, thank you for that. The motion passes unanimously 10-0 with no abstentions and no null votes. And we are on to the next region, which is the New Jersey region. I believe in a moment we'll have some draft language that will be put up. And when that language goes up, I would look to any member of the board to make a motion, perhaps drawing upon the draft language or any variation on that. We'll wait for that to come up. And there it is. Would anyone like to make a motion pertaining to the New Jersey region?
I'll go ahead and make that motion, Bob.
Go ahead.
Move to approve for the New Jersey region the methodology for setting 2018 black sea bass recreational measures set forth in the memo of the New Jersey Bureau of Marine Fisheries dated March 15, 2018, and included in the meeting materials.
Is there a second?
Rob O'Reilly seconds it.
Thank you. So the motion has been moved and seconded, and it is before the board for consideration. Would anyone like to speak to this motion? And of course, I would go to the maker of the motion first. If Adam, if you'd like to offer any thoughts, you're welcome to. If not, if any other member of the board would like to speak to this motion, please indicate.
I have nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the board wishing to address this motion? If not, and I realize I haven't given folks an opportunity to caucus, so what I would ask is if anyone feels the need to caucus, please let me know. Hearing no indication of the need to caucus, is the board ready for the question? Apparently the answer is yes, in which case I'll call upon Caitlin to call the roll on, and I'll read the motion again. Move to approve for the New Jersey region the methodology for setting 2018 black sea bass recreational measures set forth in the memo from the New Jersey Bureau of Marine Fisheries dated March 15, 2018, and included in the meeting materials. Motion by Mr. Nowalski, second by Mr. O'Reilly. Caitlin, could you call the roll?
Sure thing. Massachusetts.
Yes.
Rhode Island.
Yes.
Connecticut.
Yes.
New York.
Yes.
New Jersey.
Yes.
Delaware.
Yes.
Maryland.
Yes.
Virginia.
Yes.
North Carolina.
Yes.
NOAA Fisheries.
Yes.
I believe that was another 10-0 vote. The motion, is that correct, Caitlin?
Yes.
So the motion passes unanimously 10-0 with no abstentions and no null votes. And we're on to the northern region as our final region to be addressed this morning. And there may be some draft language going up on the board, at which point I'll ask whether any member of the board would like to make a motion pertaining to the northern region, potentially drawing upon the language on the board or any other language or any other version that they may wish to offer.
This is Nicola Reserve. I'll do that.
Go ahead, Nicola.
I sent Caitlin a motion if she has it available. Thank you, Caitlin. Motion reads, move to approve the Northern Region's methodology for developing 2018 recreational black sea bass measures, including a regulatory standard of a 15-inch minimum size limit, 4-fish possession limit, and June 15 to October 11 season, coupled with the state measures and harvest targets set forth in Table 3 of the proposal for the Northern Region, included in the meeting materials.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Tom Foti.
Thank you. So moved by Nicola Reserve and seconded by Tom Foti. Nicola, did you want to speak to your motion?
I did, thank you. I would just like to clarify that the intent of this motion, as it specifically says, is to approve the methodology in the Northern Region proposal, which included only bag and season changes. It did not include a methodology for a size limit adjustment. The reason for that in this motion is because I am concerned about specifically the ineffectiveness of reducing harvest from a size limit increase, given the availability of large black sea bass in the Northern Region and the shared accountability within the region that would result from any state in the region exceeding its proposed or its projected harvest. As mentioned by a member of the public, in 2016, the Northern Region states all went to 15 inches, and none of us saw the projected harvest reduction. The proposal, specifically from Connecticut, would gain the state 3 open days, and I don't see that as being worth it to take away from the regional consistency of the 15-inch size in the Northern Region that would otherwise be afforded from not allowing that conservation equivalency proposal.
Thank you, Nicola. And just to be clear, from what I heard you just say, the intent of your motion is such that it would preclude any state within the northern region from offering a CE proposal that would have a minimum size greater than 15 inches. Is that the intent of your motion?
Correct, unless there is another separate motion that would approve a conservation equivalency proposal in the north that achieves that.
Understood, and that seems to be a logical way to look at this. Okay, so with that as the understanding as to the nature of the motion, discussion on the motion.
Mark Alexander.
Go ahead, Mark. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Mark. Let me just see. Mark, can you hang on for 1 second? Was that Tony?
Yeah, I think for transparency purposes, it would be good if we could add into this motion language that states that it would preclude states from increasing in conservation equivalency proposals, increasing their size limit, sorry.
Nicola, well, the motion belongs to the board now, so what I would have to seek is see if there's any objection to adding that in. So why don't you work on some language as I give Mark the floor that would achieve what Tony, you suggested, and then we'll come back to the board to see if there's any objection to that language. But Mark, let me give you the floor next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I had a little difficulty seeing how this would limit us to 15 inches and not also limit us to 4 fish or the June 15th to October 11th season. So, you know, Connecticut would be willing to concede on, you know, foregoing the 15.5-inch size increase, but we do need the conservation equivalency latitude to adjust our season and bag limit. We want to preserve that option. I agree with Tony that some wording needs to be added to this, and I don't see how this the motion as worded gives us, you know, the conservation equivalency option. I was thinking of adding to the end of this a sentence that says, implicit in this motion is the option for states to implement measures that are conservation equivalent to Table 3, except for changes in the minimum size.
Well,
I would put that as a friendly change if the seconder is also willing.
Yeah, I think
can I say something, Bob?
Let's do this, Tom. I'm going to give you the floor next, but first let's, and I realize this is difficult to do on the fly, but Caitlin or Tony, I'm not sure if you picked up on what Mark just suggested, but I'd like to suggest that the motion be amended in the way Mark just indicated, which is not exactly the same as what you have up there now. So, Mark, I don't know if you can repeat exactly what you said, but I'd like to attempt to use that language that you just offered. Can you try and repeat that?
Yes, I will. If you're ready, implicit in this motion is the option for states to implement measures that are conservation equivalent to Table 3, except for adjustments in minimum size.
So let me ask first, before I go to you, Tom, is there any objection by any member of the board to this change to the motion? All right, hearing no objection, then the motion is amended by consent, and I'm going to go to Tom. I'm sorry, is there objection?
Yes. This is Rich.
Okay, Rich. Then, given that there is objection, then this would have to be done in the form of a amendment. So we're going to have to redo this issue, and we're going to have to. And I'm just going to try to keep things moving along. So here's how I'd like to do it. I'd like to give Mark Alexander the opportunity to offer his language in red as a proposed amendment to the motion. And then I'd like to address that directly via the subsequent board discussion. So let's get up a motion to amend by adding that language. And I'll wait till that gets up there, and that would be a motion. I'm going to give staff time. This is awfully difficult to do on the fly, but you guys are doing a great job. Motion to amend by adding this language. It'll be a motion by Mr. Alexander. Is there a second to the motion to amend?
Seconded by Nicola Meserve.
Okay, so moved by Mark Alexander and seconded by Nicola to amend as indicated. I will now take discussion on the motion to amend, and I'll go to Tom Foti first, and then I'll go to Rich Wong second. Tom?
Yeah, it says in the beginning of this move to approve the Northeast Region methodology. It doesn't approve, so methodology is based on Table 3. So I think this is just redundant. Maybe I'm mistaken. But that was the same way we did in the other two motions. We allowed for conservation equivalency in there, the methodology, which means we could do conservation equivalency and change it. Am I missing something?
No, you're not, Tom. I think there's a fine line between redundancy and being explicit and clear, and I think we're leaning toward the latter here with this language. But I take your point well that it could well have been, in fact, look at the first word, implicit. So this is indeed a way to be as clear as possible regarding the intent. But I think your point is well taken, Tom.
And as a seconder, if it makes people feel more comfortable, I don't think it's needed, but I'll prove it as part of the main motion.
Bob.
Okay, well.
Bob, I just want to let you know the process for conservation equivalent, and the reason why I suggested the language be added is if the states do not want to allow for conservation equivalency to be utilized to adjust size limits at all, then you would need this language, because our process that you can adjust any measure within the plan through conservation equivalency, regardless of the methodologies that were chosen. So if the states don't want to see size limit increases, then you would need this part of the motion approved due to the process that we have in the FMP.
Thank you. I think that's very helpful. Rich Wong, did you want to go next?
Sure. I have no opposition to using size limits as a conservation measure. I've been crafting regulations for fluke and black sea bass for 13 years. Yes, there are some years where the size limit increase, even a half inch, is not effective, and then there are some years where it is incredibly effective. We haven't seen any male shortages in the stock, to my knowledge, and in fact we've seen a 5-fold increase in stock biomass since 2007. Coincidentally, size limits have risen from 11 inches to 15 inches over this period. Yes, there are other factors in play here, and we do acknowledge that there will be discards with the size limit increases, but surely the past 10 years of stock size increases is enough support for the effectiveness for raising size limits as a conservation tool. So I would not support language that would prohibit Connecticut from using size limits as a tool.
Thank you. Thank you. Additional discussion on the motion to amend. Is there anyone on the board that would like to speak to the motion to amend before we take a vote on it? Hearing no indication, do we need a roll call vote on this motion to amend?
You can ask if there's any objection if you want, Bob.
I'll do that. I sense there might be on the part of the last speaker, but is there any objection to the motion to amend? I'll ask it one more time. Is there any member of the board who objects to the motion to amend as proposed? Hearing no objection, the motion to amend is approved by unanimous consent, and we now have an amended motion, which is the main motion, and I will now entertain further discussion on the amended main motion. Would anyone else like to speak on the main motion as amended? If not, as soon as we get it up, and I will read it into the record, and then I will call for the vote. It looks like it's up, so I will read it into the record. Move to approve the Northern Region's methodology for developing 2018 recreational black sea bass measures, including a regulatory standard of a 15-inch minimum size limit, 4-fish possession limit, and June 15 through October 11 season, coupled with the state measures and harvest targets set forth in Table 3 of the proposal for the Northern Region included in the meeting materials. Implicit in this motion is the option for states to implement measures that are conservationally, I think it should say, equivalent to Table 3, except for adjustments in minimum size. This remains the motion, the main motion offered by Nicola Meserve and seconded by Tom Fody. I believe their names can still be listed there as the original makers of the motion. Does that make sense?
When you amend a motion, then it becomes the property of the board, and you lose your maker and seconder.
So we have no one. There won't be anyone listed as the maker,
exactly.
Seconder. Oh,
yep.
Okay. All right. There you go. So that being the case, is the board ready for the question? Is there any further discussion? Is there any need to caucus?
Bob, can I just ask you a quick question? This is Mike Luisi.
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure that it's clear. In Addendum 30, there were limitations to what states could do, differences from the regulatory standard. Is that understood here? That changes to the season. And I don't remember the details of Addendum 30 of what I think you mentioned them earlier. You could slightly modify your bag limit, and you could change the season to some degree. I just wanted to make sure it was clear to the board that that framework still exists, and conservation equivalency proposals would need to meet those standards.
Yes, thank you for that question. My answer would be that indeed, as set forth in Addendum 30, any conservation equivalency proposal would have to remain within the 3-fish bag limit, not to exceed a difference of 3 fish in bag. There is no limitation with regard to seasonal adjustments, so that's open-ended. And now, by virtue of the language in this motion, there would be no opportunity to vary in minimum size, recognizing that this motion only pertains to the Northern Region.
Thanks for clarifying that, Bob.
Any further discussion or need for clarification on the motion? Hearing none, is the board ready for the question? If so, Caitlin, could you call the roll?
All right. Massachusetts?
Yes.
Rhode Island?
Yes.
Connecticut?
Yes.
New York?
Yes.
New Jersey?
Yes.
Delaware?
We'll get them.
Yes.
Maryland?
Yes.
Virginia?
Yes.
North Carolina?
Yes.
All right. No fisheries.
Yes.
I believe that's another unanimous vote, 10-0 with no abstentions and no null votes. Is that correct, Caitlin?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion is approved unanimously, and That, in essence, concludes our business for the day. I just thought it might be helpful, if it's not too difficult, Caitlin, do you want to just put back up your last slide, and we'll just wrap this up with a clear sense as to next steps. I know you had a next steps slide. I'd like to just kind of end with that so everyone is clear as to where we go from here. I think it's already been covered pretty well. Is everyone clear on, so having considered the regional proposals for final approval, which just occurred, there is still an opportunity for states to submit conservation equivalency proposals to ASMFC. That would be directly to Caitlin for review at the staff level. There would be no TC review because the staff, that's already happened, and the methodologies have already been reviewed and approved. I don't know if, and then of course there needs to be a submittal to GARFO that I know Caitlin and Tony will be administering in short order. Is there anything else, Caitlin or Tony, that you want to add to this slide in terms of guidance for the board on how we're going to proceed from here?
We just ask that states submit us their measures as soon as possible. Technically, we like to get a letter to GARFO by the end of the month. I recognize that that might not be feasible. Caitlin will be emailing you to ask for those measures, and just if we could get them as quickly as possible. If you think at all you're going to do conservation equivalency, you could give us a heads up as to how long it'll take you to give us those different measures. That would be helpful. But NOAA has to put regulations out in their proposed rules and try to get them that letter prior to doing that.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions on anything having to do with our agenda this afternoon? Is there any other business to be brought before the board? Hearing none, is there any objection to adjourning? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much and have a nice rest of the day.